This week's episode of Unscripted Moments is brought to you in part by Dread. Do you wake up in the morning feeling crushed by the weight of existential crises? That's dread. Feeling dread at work, at home, or even out of town as you watch society crumble around you? Will the planet still sustain life in a generation? Will elections still occur in the future? Who knows? But what you do know is that wherever you go, there will be dread. Use promo code Critical Thought for free shipping at checkout. Now back to the episode where I'm sure we're talking about something super smart.
I come in ready to start.
We've got some fast breaking news for you. In this unscheduled special report, those Kentucky terrorists begins and I ran out for our glorious flag.
You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, we are discussing Die for the Flag from the 1995 double 7-inch, where quality is job one. It's listed on Discogs as track 1 on side F. Since the sides of the 7-inch are called sides F, U, C, and K off, this may be track 1 on the set.
I don't actually know if it's track 1. Probably is. There is no such thing as a track 1. You can't even tell what the sides of the records are because there's no center label on any of the vinyl. So you don't know what side A is. You don't know what side C is. There's nothing about this release that makes any sense, which is by design, on purpose. It's why it's called Where Quality is Job One. But just as a reminder out there, if anybody is curious why this record is so intentionally awful, you can go and listen to episode number 44, where we talked to Todd Congealier from the bands FYP and Toys That Kill, but also is the founder of Recess Records, who released this album. And I'd Rather Be Flag Burning and the Letter of Resignation picture disc. Go back, find episode 44, because it tells the whole story about this particular release and why it is so strange. So yeah, that's a little bit of a weird thing about this album, is that it's just intentionally bad. But I have the 7-inch here. Here it is with Jord on the cover with a mohawk in 1986, I believe, is when that picture was taken. But the liner notes for Die for the Flag say, in parentheses, written by, and then there's a redacted blacked out marker line, and then it says written by Jord. So when I was trying to do some investigating for this song, I sent an email to Jord because I couldn't find the lyrics anywhere, because it says written by Jord, and Jord wrote back and he said, that's a joke. So it says it's definitely written by Chris, the lyrics, but Chris crossed out his name and wrote written by Jord. So Jord told me that he did not, in fact, write this. For all the fact checkers out there, if you have this 7-inch, it's not written by Jord. Surprise. But this is what the liner notes say. What self-respecting propaganda collection would be complete without this gem? An angst-filled, wry, and biting rejection of getting killed or shot at or something. Brilliant, utterly brilliant, historically one of the Gandhi's first stabs at the flag. Mark that on your calendar, mother. So that's the liner note inclusion about Die for the Flag. No lyrics, just a little note. And there aren't any lyrics for any of the other songs on this double 7-inch either. Some gems include Hidden Curriculum, Bent, which we made an episode about, Support Gun Control, Kill Hunter, Kill Bill Harkus, which is otherwise known as The Only Good Fascist is the Very Dead Fascist. So this is a weird album, but those are a little bit of the details that I uncovered when preparing for this episode, Steve.
I mean, it's a fascinating release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen do you have the 7-inch?
I don't have it, no. I've seen it at your place, though.
Yeah, it is a joke. Basically, I think the entire thing is just one long series of jokes, which is incredible that they spent money making the record and releasing it purely for the intention of upsetting like people who bought it. You know what I mean? Like
I love a good bit, though.
the whole record is a bit. I mean,
I
there
love it.
is so much bad stuff on this release. It's so funny. Die for the Flag is track 1, and then it's followed by a song that's listed on YouTube as Unknown Side F2, which is just like a metal jam. And then there's like later on there's like a 5-second version of Degrassi Junior High Dropouts. There is some okay stuff on here, like government cartoons, hidden curriculum, support gun control, kill a hunter are by far the realest inclusions on the record. But for the most part, this thing is filled with jokes, like locking grooves on the end of Greenest Eyes. I think it says "You're so stupid" or something like that, like over and over and over on like a vinyl loop. So you have to like actually move the record needle to the next track if you want to get out of this like this locked groove loop. It's wild. I never listened to this thing on vinyl because I just can't stand it. But it's got a lot going on as far as like the little details go.
It's the ultimate collector's piece.
It is, and it's expensive too. I mean, if you look around for this record, you're going to spend some cash on this thing, and you're going to get it, and you're going to be confused as to how to even play it. So just buyer beware, basically, because you're in for a wild ride if you get this one.
Legendary bit. Love it.
This episode of Unscripted Moments is brought to you by WAB234, the only podcast that is dissecting the music career of Manitoba premier Wab Canoe. Long before he was in politics and even before he was a personality on CBC Radio 1, Wab was a rapper. WAB234 is a song-by-song analysis of both his solo albums as well as his work with Dead Indians and Slang Blossom. Get ready to hear about such hits as West End Girls, Good Boy, Mama Said, Pop a Pill, and Live by the Drum. As a special treat for Propagandy fans, Wab's appearance on Things I Like will also be covered. Check out WAB234 anywhere you don't find podcasts on the iFart Radio Network. So just a little bit of news. The Propagandy has finished recording their new album. I'm hearing through the grapevine there are about 13 songs that were recorded. Chris has been back on his Patreon. He recently did an episode on Fixed Frequencies, and he just today released a new version of Fixed Frequencies over on Patreon where he sings the song in a different key. And he did some pitch modulating software stuff where he like changed the key of the song on guitar and bass to a more reasonable register for himself now. So if anybody has, took a break from Chris's Patreon, just a reminder that he's back over there now that the record is done. So that's a pretty cool thing that's going on over there in Propagandy world. But yeah, there's that's all the news I've got as far as the band goes. But nobody did a cover for this song. I searched far and wide for somebody to do a cover of Die for the Flag. Nobody did it, and we also have no guest on this episode. So this is going to be a quick one today.
Man, no cover, no guest. When was the last no cover, no guest Propagandy song episode we did? It's been a while.
I don't know if I've ever had a no cover, no guest episode with you. I know that there was no cover, no guest on the Things I Like episode that I made with Keith, which was like episode 15 or 16 or something.
Yeah, like it's been a long time.
Yeah, so this is a song that almost no one cares about as far as I can tell.
No, we're raw dogging this episode. We got nothing.
We got nothing. We have only our vocal charms and our wit and humor to carry us through this this one. Okay, so let's talk about this song. The music opens with a 21-second gap of cassette buzzing, band chatter. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to kick off a record, which makes the title hilarious as well.
So I want to relate this back to another record that I know you know about. How does this compare to the beginning of the October Rust record by Typo
Oh.
Negative, which is just a bad ground followed by them laughing and talking about you buying the record.
That's good. That's a good connection, and I'm glad for any Typo Negative commentary on this podcast now. It is comparable to that because it's like, what the hell even is this? You put it on, and if you put this record on, there's no guarantee that if you pulled this thing out of the sleeve in 1995 that you're actually going to get the first song for real. So the way the record kicks off is this 21-second buzzing, and somebody in the background, maybe it's Hopper, I think it might be their first bass player, says, "I come in right at the start." Like, they don't even know where they come in. So they're recording this for a release to sell to people. And the first thing you hear is this resounding confidence of when the playing comes in together. So what a great way to start off where quality is job number one.
I love it.
So, Steve, this song is 4 minutes long. Longest 4 minutes of my life.
It is the longest 4-minute song I've ever heard.
It is.
It is about 3 to 4 times longer than it needs to be.
I can't even listen to the whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
I cannot commit. I've listened to this song all the way through one time in preparation for this. And other than that, it's like me skipping around because these insanely long jams are in between the singing. It is dreadful. The guitar recording on the song is among the worst guitar
It's
recording
like
sounds.
tin can, no mid range at
Yeah.
all. Like, just throw that out the window.
Of any song ever recorded featuring a guitar that got a large wide scale release, this is the worst sounding guitar tone I've ever heard. The only way I can tell the melody is by listening to the bass, which happens to come through crystal clear on the recording. They must have recorded this on a boombox microphone next to the bass cabinet because the bass comes through really clear. I mean, the guitar sounds like I'm in my garage running a power saw, and I'm not even being hyperbolic about that. It is indecipherable garbage for the guitar sound. So I had no idea what I was really even listening to. So as far as I'm concerned, the bass is the lead instrument on this song. And the length of the song is hilarious. It's like they're teenagers. They have no idea how to really like write a song. They don't know how to come back in with the next vocal verse. So they just kind of like are looking at each other, trying to like eyeball each other, and then they're nodding at each other like teenage bands do when they're going to come to the next part. And so they just kept going and like looking at each other until Chris was like, "Okay, I guess we'll go in now." And then he nods, and then they pause and he goes, "Well, let me get this straight." So it's a teenage recording on a boombox that is them figuring themselves out as a band, and it's
Right.
hilariously bad.
Yeah, it's exactly what it needs to be, though.
Yeah. So I sent the song over to Paul, and I was like, "Paul, can you help me figure out what the chords are?" And because I was thinking maybe I would do a cover of it, but the guitar playing is super fast, and I didn't feel like modifying it to a slower version. But the chords for anybody out there who feels like learning how to play Die for the Flag are C, E flat, F, E flat, C, E flat, C, B flat, C, E flat, F, E flat, C, B flat, G, B. That's the verse. Then the chorus is C, D, A flat, C, E flat, G, D, E flat, F. So that's the chord progression for this song, according to Paul's just kind of like winging it interpretation from what he was able to figure out. So I strongly encourage him to be out there if you are looking to learn Die for the Flag, to just recreate what I just said, and you allegedly will have a cover of this song. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the music. You got anything else on the music?
Not the music. To be honest, like, I think we've said enough about the music.
Okay, great. Guitars were recorded by a power saw cutting lumber in a garage with the door shut, and the room is made of concrete. That is
It was just done at the back of Home Depot, where after you buy the wood, they cut it on the big table saw.
This episode is also brought to you by Swampy Pete's Irregular Bathtubs. Are you tired of big bathtub robbing you blind whenever you need to replace such an intimate fixture in your home? At Swampy Pete's Irregular Bathtubs, we have a wide selection of irregular tubs at prices you have to see to believe. Our rustic models come with authentic rust, and we can guarantee the authenticity as it was on the tubs when we found them. Another favorite model is the auger. We buy them with no hole in the bottom and then pass those savings on to you. Come visit us at our showroom located outdoors in the field behind the Target off exit 138. Tell them Greg sent you. Yeah, now the lyrics are a different story. Because as with all propaganda songs, there is something to talk about with the lyrics as usual. Even though it was written by teenagers, it's still kind of interesting in a few spots. So the lyrics are hard to get. They're not published online. I did a transcription from what I could figure out on my own. I sent it to Jamie, and then Jamie did a transcription based on my first draft. Then we sent the draft to Chris after George corrected me that he was not actually the author. I then recalibrated and sent it to Chris. And I got the correct lyrics from Chris because they aren't listed on the inside of the double 7-inch. So when I wrote to Chris to ask, he helped me nail down the correct lyrics based on some inaccuracies in my own transcription. And Chris, this is his sole comment after he sent the lyrics back. Quote, OMG, what a song, end quote. So these lyrics appear nowhere else published online except for on this podcast. So we have an exclusive discussion of the correct lyrics for Die for the Flag from Where Quality is Job Number One, if you can believe it.
Hey, I love a good exclusive. You hear that, advertisers?
Yes, we are ready for your big advertising dollars. And if you don't know what we're talking about, go listen to the Little Diddy episode where we openly discuss now that we are willing to be corporate shills or shills for any niche mom and pop business that may or may not include selling fireworks, meat, and butterfly knives. In exchange for the exact dollar amount it would require for us to buy Buffalo Bills season tickets. So here's the first little bit. We've got some fast breaking news for you in this unscheduled special report. Those mud-sucking, child-raping heathens in Iran have burnt our glorious flag.
There's a lot to unpack right there.
There really is. Do you want to give it a first crack? I got some thoughts on it.
No, you go first.
Okay, so I went and watched some flag burning videos after I read this lyric, including from the recent Quds Day celebration in Iran, which happens to protest Israel's actions against Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank for many years now. And a bunch of American flags get burned in the video, and every other comment in the comments section is, gee, they sure hate America a lot. I wonder why. It's pretty boring to see such unreflective commentary that people are so incapable of just stopping and attempting to come up with a few reasons for why people may have mixed feelings about the United States in general.
Do you not think that comment is tongue-in-cheek?
It could be.
I feel like it has to be.
I mean,
I'm taking the I wonder why as in obviously everyone knows why.
Okay, well, that's fine. So pardon my inability to give Americans commenting on things the benefit of the doubt much lately.
Maybe I'm the idiot here. I don't know.
You really might be. But like I have to say, there were many, many, many comments about, oh my God, they are so angry. But I like how the line describes the phenomenon of ensuring we see things in an unscheduled way, like as if it's so important that we have to interrupt all things in order to make sure that everybody sees this. Like, we get these unscheduled things that will hugely appeal to intense emotions of very few, and you'll never get like a full story presented in a way that will help viewers see multiple sides. Like there's no background. If you were to get the Quds Day the Quds Day protests, and the footage of the burning of the American flag, I doubt that, you know, the local or the evening news or whatever would go into a nuanced commentary of the history of Quds Day and why that exists. So kind of reminds me like growing up in St. Louis, where like I would see like crime reports on the normal 5 o'clock news in St. Louis that would make me terrified of like the city and how things there must basically be like on fire or at war like all the time. So it like stokes up emotions and fears and suspicions and leaves us less informed uh than before. So it's funny to think about like how many times have we ever had like some kind of like breaking news or seen news that was like just getting us to think about something very in a very specific way with a very limited interpretation, and how that's like just been a source of manipulation that all of us have experienced throughout our entire lives, um including, and it's gotten so much worse with the spread and prevalence of social media in general. And you have to remember this was written in like 1989, and think about how much like more manipulative things are now.
Oh, it's terrible. Like I'm super excited. I recently deleted my social media accounts and I could not be happier.
Yeah, like what did you delete? What did you go for?
I deleted Twitter entirely.
Hmm.
You gone. And then
Yeah.
I deleted anything meta related completely off my phone. I've not a single social media account on my phone or messaging or anything. I just have base level phone now,
Hmm.
and it's made my life significantly better.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad. Because we've been talking about this a lot at my house lately as well, about how, especially with the inauguration and seeing all the tech people like front and center at like the inauguration events, I'm like, wow, is Meta now state sponsored propaganda? Um, and like I don't see this going anywhere good. So it's definitely something that I'm considering for my own life as far as like massive changes as well.
If if anyone's looking for information on this stuff, I read a book. I posted in our Discord last week about it, but I read a book recently called Offline, and it's about like cell phone usage, and social media on cell phones and how it affects our brains and stuff. Super
Yeah.
fascinating book. Highly recommend it.
Well, and then there's The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. The subtitle is What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. Another great one. Like last night, I was laying in bed reading a book, a paper book, not even on a Kindle, which I also love my Kindle. Um, but I was reading the book and I was like finding myself like forcing myself to stay with the book and not like put it down, put my bookmark in mid chapter and go back to my phone. Like it is like so intense, that drive now. And so we are really in a difficult place in our society right now with regards to attention and manipulation and the spread of information. It's really bleak.
One one
So
th- well, just to keep going on this tangent for a slight minute here. One thing that I've found has been very productive for me is, so once I removed all these apps, social apps from my phone, what I did was, I don't know if you have an app there called Libby. It's an
mhm,
app that connects directly to your library.
I have it. I love it.
So what I do is I've subscribed my through my library. I've subscribed to a bunch of magazines like Philosophy Today, Psychology News, like stuff like that. And so now I replace all like my social scrolling with article reading in magazines if I'm using my phone for a little bit. So I feel like I'm actually still, I've got the usage and like the motion and everything is still working, but I'm reading like a legitimate form of, an article, which I
Yeah.
find to be far more productive and informative than, endless social scrolls.
So, thinking about this song, so that's the way that our attention is brought into things that are meant to either piss us off or appeal to our very intense emotions and drag our attention into those things. And the fast breaking news report on the evening news showing flag burning is like an antiquated version of that now, because now we can see those things being live streamed in real time if you click on the right,
Yeah.
live broadcast on Instagram in the reels, or in the Instagram stories, I mean. Um, and it's amazing how easy it is to live broadcast. Like I was at Blissmas a few months ago, and I live broadcasted on our Instagram a little bit of the Converge set, and it's like all of a sudden it's like 50 people are like logged in, like watching what I'm seeing live on Instagram. And it's like bam, those things it's so addictive and so hooking. But I did do a little bit of research about flag burning and flag burning laws. Do you want to know do you want to hear what I learned?
Sure, because I
So,
before we get into this, what is your
yeah,
opinion on flag burning?
I mean, it's protected speech. Like, it's just so obvious. And people can get like all bent out of shape about it, but like if somebody burns it, so what? You know what I mean?
Right? Like, who cares?
Do whatever you want. Like, do whatever you want. Are you for freedom or are you not? And so this is a thing that has a history in the US. There's Supreme Court cases discussing exactly this. Uh, a notable case is called Texas v. Johnson in 1989. And it says that flag burning constitutes symbolic speech that is protected by the First Amendment. And here's what you need to know. A majority of the Supreme Court, 5-4, found that it is protected. So Gregory Lee Johnson burned an American flag outside the convention center where the 1984 Republican National Convention was being held in Dallas. Johnson burned the flag to protest the policies of Reagan. He was arrested and charged with violating a Texas statute that prevented the desecration of a venerated object, including the flag, if such action were likely to incite anger in others. And a Texas court tried and convicted Johnson. He appealed, argued that his actions were symbolic speech protected by the First Amendment, and the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. And the issue is whether flag burning constitutes symbolic speech. The ruling was yes, 5-4. And so then in 1990, there was another case, United States versus Eichmann, that struck down so in response to the Johnson thing, there was this thing called the Flag Protection Act of 1989, which is a federal law that criminalized flag desecration. And then in 1990, United States versus Eichmann struck down the Flag Protection Act. So in response, Congress, it was a big deal, widely commented on, and the Supreme Court ruled in the United States versus Eichmann that the Flag Protection Act was unconstitutional, and the court reasoned that the law was designed to suppress free expression by protecting the flag from symbolic speech that might offend others. And the court also ruled that the government's interest in protecting the flag as a symbol didn't outweigh the individual's right to express themselves through flag burning.
Like that would never happen again. Never.
Yeah. Well, so the president now,
yeah.
So this next lyric, and our fearless leader is seething mad. This line alone, in 2016, November of 2016, the president said, nobody should be allowed to burn the American flag. If they do, there must be consequences, perhaps loss of citizenship or a year in jail. That's a direct quote. And so I know this song is decades old, but all summer leading up to the 2024 presidential election, the president over and over repeated the plan to punish flag burning, which he started talking about in 2016. Maybe earlier. I didn't go earlier than that. Maybe he said it for years and years, and I don't know. But in 2016, I was able to find that, and he reiterated those things this year. And speaking in Detroit to the National Guard Association of the U.S., he said, Trump said, you burn an American flag, you go to jail for a year. He said that in 2024. And he said, we got to do it. They say, sir, that's unconstitutional. We'll make it constitutional. So like I said, in 1989, the court divided 5-4 on the issue of holding the demonstrators' conviction for flag desecration was inconsistent with the First Amendment. But the case concerned a political demonstration during the 1984 Republican National Convention. Antonin Scalia, who the president has repeatedly praised, sided with the majority, saying that if there is a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it is that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea itself offensive or disagreeable. Scalia in 2012 said he didn't agree with flag burning, but that it's fundamentally protected by the Constitution, and that the Founding Fathers' efforts to create a government not ruled by tyranny. So there is an active discussion happening now to make that long precedent reversed. So it is, it's crazy. But the Flag Protection Act of 89 was supported by George H.W. Bush before it was ruled unconstitutional. and the Flag Protection Act of 2005, which is another failed attempt to criminalize flag burning, was co-sponsored by then Senator Hillary Clinton. So there's a long history of that, and listeners out there can go and find tons and tons of articles and information simply by Googling flag burning and Supreme Court and things like that. So go find more. I don't need to go on and on more about that at this time.
Why do you think it doesn't happen more?
Flag burning?
Yeah.
I think that because people are just too tired. And a lot of people really a lot of people really enjoy the symbol of the flag. Like, you've been to professional sporting events in the United States. You've seen that it is a widely accepted cultural thing to stand up, remove your hats, do the anthem. Like, it's a big deal.
Like, if I just want to tie this back into the the first time I saw propaganda in Montreal, literally someone lit a Canadian flag on fire in the middle of the crowd.
Wow. Did the show get shut down?
No.
Holy smokes. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever personally seen a flag burning myself. I've never burned one. I probably never will. And I've never
I don't own a flag. Like, where would I even, I'm like, am I going to pay human money to purchase a flag? Not a chance.
I don't have one. I don't have one either. I don't own one. I'm not buying one. Like, I'm sure as heck not going to spend money on something just so that I can burn it. It's like, whenever people got pissed at like Bud Light or whatever for their support of like transgender people, and like they went out and like bought cases of it so they could shoot it with their like, their AR-15s. Like, I'm not going to spend money on something just so that I can destroy it. Like, I'm on a budget here, people.
The only flag I'm burning is a Toronto Maple Leafs flag. Boom.
Chris, you've been served. Okay, so time to unite and retaliate. The anchorman grins, a job well done, faking news to stir up racial hate. So, the song talks about Iran. The population of Iran is 89 million people. I guarantee you that if 10 people in Iran light a flag on fire, we're going to see it in some way. So out of the 89 million people in that country, we're going to see it if 10 people burn something that relates to America. And we're going to be like, oh my gosh. And the faking news line has proven to be a little ominous and something
Simpsons-esque, right?
Propaganda does this pretty well, man. Their lyrics tend to age well, and it's pretty eerie to be reading a lyric written by a teenager in like 1989, the day before, during, and after an inauguration of a man who said in 2016 that we're going to bring back the criminalization of burning flags. So
did we not have a conversation the other day when we were at was it at the Bills game? We had a conversation about how well like the Reagan youth lyrics have held up too.
Yeah, I mean, you might have had that conversation with Stu. I can't remember having that conversation.
Maybe with Stu, but it was like they were literally children. Yeah. Those still hold up, and it's similar to like this, the age in which when they put this out, like it's wild that this still holds up.
I know, it's really impressive. So even though I don't like this song, like I said, the lyrics have, some merit because it's kids figuring out their place in the world, and they're seeing things that adults are doing that they're like, hey, wait a second. So they have a very, very natural, inquiring mind about these things, of having the ability to be like, whoa, wait, what? And just, thinking for themselves a little bit and processing what they're seeing around them, and wondering why the world is the way it is. So then the lyrics say, you'll die for the flag. No, I won't. You'll die for the flag. Then now let me get this straight. You want me to die for a flag I hate. You want me to solve a problem I didn't create. You want me to die for your Nazi state. So we have straight, hate, create, and state as the rhyme pattern here.
But we need to also shout out the way those words are said in the song. In that flag is said, flag, yag, and straight is said, straight.
Well, let me get this straight. So very angsty to equate Canada in 1989 with Nazis. It says, you want me to die for your Nazi state? I'm like, okay, And then later he says, as a passive puppet to the Nazi regime. So who is the Nazi regime? The lyrics don't make quite clear. Is it the US? Is it Israel? Is it Canada? Who is the passive puppet and who is the Nazi regime? Um, so then he says, I won't die for the flag. No fucking way. And the no fucking way is my favorite part of the song when he sings this because the music mercifully stops and it's a cool little vocal in the break between the music. And I just picture teenage kids being like, yeah, we said fuck in a song. And it wasn't disguised and muddled by the music. So I thought that was pretty cool. Nice little punk rock moment. Um, I won't die for a flag to be shipped home in a crate. And then he says, well, there I go again. I've burned it. So by it, I presume that he is now burning the flag for himself. And then he says, but listen, man, this country has earned it as a passive puppet to the Nazi regime. You'd see it too if you'd seen what I've seen. And I like that. I think that's fun. I think Chris was a teenager when he wrote this, so I'm curious by what he meant by seeing what I've seen. What did Chris see? What is the thing that he saw that made him see the place where he lives as a Nazi regime and himself and his fellow citizens as a passive puppet?
I wonder
So,
if Chris was a fan of the song Nazi Dog.
by Swindled?
Yes.
Ooh, by Swindle, legendary Toronto hardcore punks. Who knows? Who knows? So that's, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of the lines that I just ripped through at the speed of light?
I mean, I find it just interesting, like just to go back to what you said of like based off their ages and stuff. And this is pre-internet.
Right. Completely pre-internet.
What is going on in Winnipeg at this time?
Well, I don't think he's in Winnipeg. I think he's in Portage la
Uh,
Prairie
he's
living on a
Portage la
military
Prairie.
base.
Oh, if that's fair.
Yeah, so he's like, I think he's like
Yeah.
writing these while living on a military base.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. But yeah, it's just wild to
Yeah.
because it's so charged. And like, yeah, I guess, when you're kids, you're fired up about stuff and you're all heated. But I'm just so curious as to, like you said, what was going on that sparked this specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be fun if Chris did a Patreon episode about some of the early material like this. I think it would maybe jar loose some memories from his childhood.
I feel like the likeliness of that is pretty low, though. Like
Pretty
they
low.
pretty much don't want to touch any of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, he did talk about the some of the demos on Patreon, but it would be neat for him to be like tell the entire story of such an extremely forgotten song like "Dive for the Flag." But I was very pleased that for the sake of this episode, he did reply in full, got me a completely accurate transcript of the lyrics. And so I'm grateful to him for even mildly engaging.
Oh, absolutely.
For our episode on this song because, like the lyrics were not available.
And meanwhile he's like, I can't believe those bozos are doing an episode.
He doesn't like it when we do episodes like this. He's like, oh God, not that one. And I love it when he talks about that kind of stuff. Like I think he talked about it at length on his Tartuffe episode about like when we talk about specific songs. He's like, oh, they made a Comply Resist episode, cool. And they're like, oh, they made a This Might Be Satire episode. Oh crap. So there's a really, really funny thought process that he's described on his podcast whenever we do certain episodes about certain songs.
It's a hilarious like give and take love-hate relationship between the show and his view of the show and the band. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for him as well because we talk about stuff that he wrote when he was probably 16, 17 years old especially on a song like this. And that's why I'm like, I can't stand this song. I cannot listen to it. It makes my head hurt, but I'm also 41 years old. If I heard this when I was a kid or if my band wrote this when I was a kid, I would be stoked. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a very, very, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that, this is a really interesting starting point for the band. It's one of their earliest recorded songs. Um, and I think that he probably thought it was hilarious to open this album with this song with that 21 seconds of, oh, do I come in right when it starts?
Love it.
And so anyway, let's get back to a couple more lines here, because this is interesting. Now, fearless leader is coming down on me. He's going to lock me up and throw away the key. And it's so interesting to read that lyric now that we have a new president who is actively calling for jailing people who burn flags and has called for that for many years now and might pull it off, might remove that as constitutionally protected speech. Who knows, man? Who knows? Um, and then he says, well, sorry, fearless leader, you're out of luck. One less mind for your government to fuck. And it's so interesting thinking back on our social media commentary from earlier and watching the TikTok drama unfolding, watching Meta like supplicate at the feet of the new president, watching social media ravage the minds and hearts of people and seeing the ways that we are all manipulated endlessly into being passive puppets by directing our attention span into an endless doom scroll loop. And so you really have to choose now for yourselves for your mind to not be quote unquote fucked, as it says in the song.
Yep.
Really interesting stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the lyrics for this tune.
And I think us doing this tune now, like at this time in place,
American history.
is so much more effective than had this song been done 2 years ago.
I agree. So I'm glad that I forgot this song existed until basically Inauguration Day 2025. I found some other stuff, man, on flag burning. There is a visual artist whose work I've been looking at, and he gave a TED talk that I would like to recommend. And the artist is named Dred Scott, not the early 1800s Dred Scott court case that Americans will recognize the name of. I don't know if they know it very well, but they'll recognize the name of it from high school history classes. Dred Scott, D-R-E-A-D, Dred. Dred Scott is a visual artist that does revolutionary art meant to propel history forward. And he gave a TED Talk. It was only 5 minutes long, called How Art Can Shape America's Conversation About Freedom. And he was a part of the 1990 Supreme Court case about flag burning. And he did some art installations in Chicago about, what is the proper way to display a flag that was hugely controversial. I'm going to do some episode artwork based on some of the newspaper clippings that I found from Dred Scott's 1989, 1990 super controversial art installations. So definitely go check that out. Such a great TED Talk. I really enjoyed it, and it gave me a lot to think about. So I asked our Discord community if anybody has any thoughts on this song. Apparently nobody gives a crap because Paul is the only one that replied and said it expletive rules and quote that song freaks. So Paul really enjoys it. But no one else commented on it. So I am just publicly saying I'm so disappointed in the Discord community for not giving me endless amounts of fodder to read on the internet and quote them directly. Just kidding. I'm not disappointed at all. And there was a YouTube comment that says, I can only like this once. So, this song has a small appreciation, but I've enjoyed revisiting it and thinking about the lyrics and learning about the flag burning Supreme Court cases and, looking at the artwork from Dred Scott. But that's really kind of my sole thoughts on this tune.
I think this song holds, and the recording and everything holds, a very intentional and specific place in the discography of Propaganda. And you gotta just, like listening to it in 2025 is very different than listening to this when it originally came out, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, like, obviously in today's standards, it's virtually unlistenable.
Yeah.
But at the time when, we were getting like, mid-era, like New York hardcore stuff coming out, like early black metal stuff coming out, if you look and listen to like early black metal stuff, the recording of this is not much worse than that. Like it's very on par. So like we have to, I feel like we have to give it a little bit of grace.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm fine with that.
And because of that, I'm not going to look negatively about the song other than the fact that it's 4 minutes long, which might be part of the bit, which I'm okay with.
Dude, wouldn't that be funny if that was part of the bit? Like, because it's so long. It's a very musically beginner level punk song for a group of young musicians. They're clearly very good at their instruments at a young age, but they lack songwriting acumen that comes with experience.
Don't we all?
It should be 2 minutes. Ideally, it would be like Mutual Friend and it'd be like 45 seconds. You know what I mean? It just goes on and on. It's way too long, but it's a fun journey knowing where the band would go from there, who they would become. The lyrics are very intense, very teenage angsty, which Chris himself writes in the yellow liner notes for the double 7-inch. If you have a physical copy,
which is great. Honestly, I love hearing bands' early recordings when they had that level of like unregulated angst.
Yeah, he's so mad. He's so mad. And I've really like, and the thing is, like, I'm 41 years old, and this song caused me to go back and look at Supreme Court case decisions from 1989 and 1990 and learn about the history of, support for laws banning flag burning, ranging from George H.W. Bush to Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump. So, I mean, there is a history worth learning and assessing. And had I not thought about this song for this episode, I would have just, gone on my way and probably never come across that material again as long as I lived.
And here we are. We just cracked her out.
We did. What do you rate this song?
We're giving this one a 2.
Ooh.
And I'm rating it that high because I'm invoking the time and place clause.
Okay. Well, I was going to give it a 0.5, but I will invoke the time and place clause and I will give it a 1. I'll probably never listen to it again, on purpose as long as I live. I don't know, maybe when I'm 70, I'll bust this one out again.
This
and
bad boy's gone on the tailgate playlist.
Dude, we can't because there's no streaming version.
I know.
But yeah, it's way too long. It's really grating to listen to, but I've really enjoyed talking about the lyrics. And yeah, good times. Die for the Flag, track 1, perhaps, on Where Quality is Job Number 1 double 7-inch.
Anywhere between tracks 1 and 7.
14 or whatever.
14, yeah.
How many songs are on this damn thing? This thing's a piece of crap. What a terrible album.
But it's because it's the first song on the side, right? So it's only going to be there. And how many? There's 4 sides, right? So it could be.
Yeah.
It's either track 1 or 3 or
whatever it is. It's quite a fascinating release. But I do want to remind people to go back and listen to episode 44 with Todd Conjolier from Recess Records, because he tells the whole story of the joke in this record. Super important conversation as far as this podcast goes. And then we buried it in the Portage La Prairie episode, which is a huge mistake because it meant that almost no one heard it. So episode 44, Todd Conjolier interview, super, super good interview. But this has been our episode on Die for the Flag. You can reach out at propagandapod@gmail.com. If you want to say, hey, Steve, we got some, I've had a good time today, so thank you for hanging out with me and talking about this tune.
This has been awesome. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
won't die for a flag.